Nike's locked in. I love it. What's going on, everybody? Today was the release date of the Nike Vomero 18. This shoe right here. And I just ran a quick 4 miles in the shoe. It was freaking hot, so excuse me if I'm sweating or stumbling on my words. I just had to get this video out for the first run review of the Vomero 18s. So the Vomero 18 is typically Nike's premium daily trainer, so that can be interpreted in a lot of different ways, like a more cushioned daily trainer, more cushioned than the Pegasus 41. I think now with Nike's restructuring of their running line, I think that this shoe falls more under a maximum cushion shoe. So think, Hoka Bondi 9, the one that I just reviewed, New Balance More V5. I think it's looking to compete with those types of shoes. So it's a non-plated max stack height running shoe, daily trainer. So with that out of the way, now we can get into the performance after my first run. So just to reiterate, this is not my full review and these are not my final thoughts. I have only put 4 miles on this shoe. I literally just ran in them. It was really hot here in LA, so I'm excited to give you guys my first thoughts. This is more of just like a first impressions video, a hypothesis video. I'm gonna think how it's gonna perform over the long term. Again, this is just the first impression of the shoe. So starting out with the traction, as you can see, it looks pretty much like what you would expect from Nike, although they did hollow out a little bit of the midsole right here so that there's no traction pods here, and it allows for a little bit more compression on the foam and also saving weight. But as you can see, the lugs that you do see are the typical Nike waffle lugs, and traction for me, I was running on the road, so I didn't have any issues with the traction. Typically, Nike's waffle traction patterns work pretty well for me for the surfaces that I run on. It can handle, oftentimes a little bit of trail, just a little bit, maybe a little dirt, a little sand. It's not gonna be the best traction that you've ever had in your life, but it's gonna do the job. So in this shoe, I'm predicting that the traction is gonna be good on a variety of surfaces. When I ran on the road just now, it was perfectly fine. As for durability, these Nike waffle lugs typically are a little bit on the softer side. I'm just thinking of my Pegasus 41s as well as my Zoom Fly 6s. I do think that they're a little bit softer in these newer Nike models, so I don't think that they last as long as Nike's older Pegasus or the ones that I've owned. So that's something to keep in mind. But as we put more miles on the shoe, I'll talk a little bit more about durability in my full review. Now moving on to the main event of the Vomero, which is this year's cushion setup. So this year, believe it or not, the Nike Vomero 18 is $10 cheaper than last year's model. So it's very rare that we see running shoe companies, especially Nike, no shots at Nike, I'm a Nike fanboy, that the last year's model retails for $10 more than this year's model. So the Vomero 17 actually retailed for $160. This year's model comes in at $150, which is why in the beginning I thought that Nike really is locking in now on this year's line. So we have extra cushion as well. So not only the price decrease, but also they're giving us more foam, so more bang for the buck. So this year we have 46 millimeters of stack height in the heel, dropping to 36 millimeters of stack height in the forefoot. Still that traditional Nike 10 millimeter heel to toe drop, which you love it or hate it. In my case, I think that it really works on the shoe, and let me explain why. So before we get into that, this is a dual density setup. So the top layer of the foam is Nike Zoom X, as you can see, and the bottom layer is actually React X. I don't know if y'all can, I'm gonna try to focus it. I'm trying to also do this review in one take, but I don't know if you can see it, but essentially it says React X on the bottom and Zoom X on top. And with the 10 millimeter heel to toe drop, you might think that this shoe is super bulky due to that 46 millimeters of stack height in the heel, but when I was running in the shoe, I was actually pleasantly surprised because of that 10 millimeter heel to toe drop. So typically in max cushion shoes, especially like shoes with the New Balance More V5, you have a 4 millimeter heel to toe drop in that shoe, so you have a lot more cushion in the forefoot, which could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. But in this case, since there is a 10 millimeter heel to toe drop, I feel like you get max cushion in the heel as well as a little bit extra cushion in the forefoot, but you also get more compression and more ground feel in the forefoot, which is why I feel like I could run a little bit faster in this shoe versus more traditional max cushion shoes. So actually, I was pleasantly surprised. I ran the first mile of my 4 mile run that I just ran at around a 10-minute pace, which is kind of like my easy run pace, nothing too crazy. Second mile, I kind of went down to 9:15, which is approaching, honestly, my marathon pace. I didn't even notice I was running that fast, but I think that it's due to that 10mm heel to toe drop, and it doesn't feel as like high off the ground as a lot of other max cushion shoes, which I think a lot of people are going to love. And I think that it's either the rocker or that 10mm heel to toe drop, which is a little bit higher than most running shoes or most max cushion shoes, that really gives it that ground feel and that feel that you can run a little bit faster. Now, how did the foam feel? The foams, the dual density setup, felt actually a little bit softer than, you know, like maybe what I've been used to running in, especially with daily trainers. Typically daily trainers are a little bit more on the firm side, but the Nike Zoom X was a nice balance of soft and a little bit of spring. I wouldn't say it's the most responsive foam. I don't think that Zoom X is the bounciest super foam on the market. I think that it's more on the softer side, as well as that React X is good for a little bit of stability. Now, since this is a higher stack shoe, you might want to be careful about, you know, if you need a more stability running shoe, because since this is so high off the ground, if you have bad form, or I guess you're more of an overpronator, I shouldn't say bad form, your foot is going to teeter over even more, and you don't want to twist your ankles in running shoes. So if you do typically wear neutral running shoes and you don't have a problem, this also shouldn't be a problem. But if you look for stability shoes, I don't think that this is going to be the best option for you due to that high stack height, as well as, I mean, the base is pretty wide. I didn't personally have any problems with the stability in the shoe just from a 4-mile first run. But I do think that, yeah, if you are looking for stability shoes, definitely don't look at these, just because I don't think that they're going to be able to support you that well. Now, if you're into neutral running shoes, I think that these are going to be perfectly fine from a stability standpoint. I didn't feel unstable at all in my 4-mile run. So cushion for me, I thought was pretty versatile. It was soft, so it was nice on my knees and my joints and stuff. I could see this used for easy runs, as well as possibly maybe a long run where you're maybe trying to pick it up to marathon pace. I did go below marathon pace. My last mile, I think, was around an 8:30, which for me is a little bit on the faster side. I would say that's more half marathon pace for me. So I do think that there is a little bit of versatility, but again, the cushion setup is a little bit on the softer side, which is to be expected with a max cushion shoe. But I do think that the highlight is that high heel to toe drop, as well as that little bit of rocker in the front, so it doesn't feel super sluggish. I'm super excited to test these on fast runs, long runs, and see if that versatility holds up. Now, moving on to the upper, I would say that this upper is pretty standard from Nike. It's nothing special. They just stuck to the basics, which honestly I'm okay with. So it's just a full length engineered mesh. I think it's like a dual engineered mesh, because as you can see maybe, or can't see, the underneath the white mesh, there is a little bit of a lime layer. I'm not exactly sure if you guys can see that. And just from the light test, it is a little thicker of an upper. I would say that I didn't really feel the wind in my toes on this shoe. So if you're looking for a heavily ventilated shoe, I don't think that this is gonna be the one for you. But if you're looking for a nice, plush, comfortable upper, I think that this is still gonna fit the bill. So this does have a gusseted tongue. The tongue is pretty thick, and the heel collar is pretty thick as well. I didn't have any problems with the fit. The heel lockdown was absolutely perfect. I almost didn't need to do the runner's loop, but I just did it anyways because it's kind of like a habit by now. And then as for the forefoot and the midfoot fit, I thought that it ran true to size. If you typically wear Nikes, whatever size you wear in those Nikes, get that in this shoe. I think that Nike running, as well as just Nike shoes in general, have pretty consistent sizing in my experience. Now, I got my regular size 12 and I have a wider than average foot, and I felt that this shoe accommodated my wide foot perfectly fine. If you have a narrow foot or maybe a normal foot, maybe you could go down half a size, but I would recommend you trying them in store if you can, just in case. But if you go true to size, I think like your true Nike size, you're gonna be good to go. So overall, the upper, I had no complaints. If anything, it just got a little bit hot at times. And if I'm really nitpicking on the shoe, I don't really like the lace loops, just because they look like they're going to break. They're just like little strings. I'm sure it's not a super big deal, but I will keep you guys updated in the full review if I have any problems with those. It's literally just because I'm afraid of the durability of them. I think that if the string breaks, you're kind of screwed. You don't really have holes to put the laces through. So I think that that's my only gripe with the upper, as well as the ventilation. I think the ventilation could have been better, but the fit and the feel of the upper was perfectly fine. So that's gonna pretty much wrap up my first run review on the Vomero 18. I think that this is a very promising max cushion shoe. I think that Nike's killing it. The Nike Pegasus 41, the Nike Zoom Fly 6, and this shoe possibly, that could be a really solid 3 running shoe rotation. I think you have a shoe for fast runs, daily runs, and then a max cushion shoe for your recovery runs. So I'm super excited to put more miles on this shoe. Let me know in the comment section down below if you picked up a pair or you're thinking about picking up a pair. I already have a feeling that this is going to compete for one of my favorite shoes last year, which is the More V5. I think that this is gonna be a heavy competitor against that shoe. So stay tuned for the full review. I'm gonna continue putting miles on them. I honestly enjoyed them a lot from the very first run, so I'm excited to put more miles on the shoe. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.